If today's politics were a painting, it would be a landscape of a cliff with people leaping to their doom. I mean, it's as if we're on a cliff where we could actually lead pretty, fulfilling lives by staying in the middle. Yet, for some inexplicable reason, half of society wants to jump off the left side, while the other half thinks it's a good idea to jump off the right. The comic part of it all is that each side mocks, criticizes, and even violently attacks the other for choosing the wrong side to jump from. Here is the issue. You and I, who pride ourselves on being different, are actually part of the problem. We feel different from the masses, but we're not. I mean, look at us. Here I am, making an intellectual video, and here you are, the erudite, educated, cultured person, listening to me. So we must be different, right? Look at how well we identify and analyze the human predicament. Sure, but given how open-minded and cultured we are, I would like to playfully entertain an idea. Maybe you and I are at best pseudo-individuals. That is, while we have strong feelings that we are different from those jumping off the cliff, because we see ourselves as grounded in authenticity and individuality, perhaps these strong feelings are nothing more than an illusion. I am deeply concerned about the masses, and I can never be certain to what extent I myself belong to them. So in this video, I want to discuss the first chapter of a classic, José Ortega y Gasset's The Revolt of the Masses. What I'm saying in this video is more of an introspective monologue, an attempt to analyze myself. If you, the listener, are intrigued enough to play along, you may consider to what extent my words may or may not apply to you. To avoid a stuffy academic tone, I won't constantly be using phrases like according to Gasset, for Gasset, or Gasset writes. If anyone is interested in distinguishing between what Gasset actually says and what is purely my interpretation, I recommend reading the book. What The Revolt of the Masses addresses is what it describes as the single most important fact for modern politics, the accession of the masses to complete social power. By definition, the masses cannot and should not rule society. Why not? Because the masses are a non-existent abstraction. To give in to the masses is to abandon personal responsibility and ethics. To give in to the masses is to dissolve into the beehive. There is a reason why fascists and populists appeal to the people. It is much easier to abandon one's moral compass and authenticity when one believes there is a particular mode of thinking that the masses follow. If the people truly exist, then surely all those people must have figured it out. So I'd better follow them. The greatest threat to democracy is the masses. You don't hear politicians addressing single individuals. Our politicians appeal to the masses, the people, because that's what we have become. And if I happen to disagree with a certain politician, I simply turn to another one who likewise appeals to the masses to which I belong. But since I see myself as part of that mass, I eagerly lap up to the politician's words. They simply feed me what I already believe to be the right path. The fact of the matter is this: though my politician may frame the will of the people differently than the other side's politician, it's the same mentality at the end of the day. But who are the masses? Look at a large building, like a shopping mall. People move in and out mindlessly, like a beehive in constant motion. Of course, every single person does have a reason for being there, and they are engaged in some particular task. But if you become self-aware and suddenly notice the crowd, you might see how the whole scene blurs into a single indistinct commotion, just like a beehive. You will perceive yourself as an awakened bee wondering where you are. The extent to which consumerism has infiltrated our lives is so profound that we don't even notice this mindless hive, nor do we question what its queen demands of us. I am oblivious to the fact that I am just another bee in the beehive. no matter how strongly I feel that I'm engaged in something important, something that no one else here in the mall is doing. Me and you gather the pollens and the sweet nectar of money that we've earned at the cost of anxiety, burnout, stress, alienation, and 1,000 other pleasantries, only to exchange it for things that do us harm. We order ultra-processed food that will kill us, purchase products that will destroy the planet, and consume entertainment that will detach us from ourselves and distract us from our predicament. Don't get me wrong, there are perfectly valid reasons to go to a mall. Much of what is essential in society has relocated there. But isn't it strange how this transformation happened so seamlessly without anyone really noticing? That is the transformative power of the masses. They engage in something mindlessly, build a beehive, and then continue to participate in it without question. The real problem is this: once the beehive is built, there is no going back. What's the alternative? Can you really imagine shutting down these megacenters so that society and small businesses can be revitalized? We've gone too deep to pull out. Now, how does a society transform into a beehive? Imagine two societies. One is full of authentic individuals who, while compassionate, are grounded in themselves and have a strong existential understanding of who they are and where they stand. The second society has the same population, yet its people gather around a single leader or ideology, mindlessly following what everyone else does. This gathering need not be a conscious act, because if ideology is doing its job properly, it will go completely unnoticed. Though the number of individuals in both cases are identical, the second society undermines individual autonomy. Ironically, the loss of individuality in a beehive occurs in the name of individuality. Words like unity are used to create division. In the name of freedom, people become suppressed. In the name of compassion, hatred is promoted. In the name of diversity, uniformity rules. And so on. The first society, the society of individuals, is not a society of self-centered narcissists. On the contrary, it's a society of compassionate individuals. The difference, however, is that such a society has no tolerance for rhetoric. Words like freedom mean nothing to them. Rather than talking about freedom, they are free. Rather than discussing what the people want, they simply act with compassion and deliver to others. It is only in a society of masses that the louder you are as a politician or the flashier your advertisement as a corporation, the more you can harness the mind of the beehive to your advantage. Are you wondering why, despite all the rhetoric about green energy and climate protection, nothing is being done? Because politicians, both left and right, have realized what society has become: masses. Politicians understand that the superficiality of words is enough. We are the Instagram and TikTok generation. We follow influencers, society's most poisonous parasites, and we buy into the carefully curated images they present of themselves. It doesn't take an expert psychologist to see that a society so fascinated by superficiality, so gullible, will fall for empty images and rhetoric. Depending on which part of the political spectrum you want to influence, simply use words like freedom, diversity, security, or unity. You don't even need to be a politician. You could be a philosopher, journalist, influencer, or what have you. There are no longer protagonists. There is only the chorus. So long as the chorus leader sings or conducts, everyone else will sing along. Who needs a protagonist who acts when you can have rhetoricians who speak? Words are certainly much cheaper, and people do fall for words. The disease of rhetoric is not confined to politics. It runs through the education system as well, where being a scholar means being a walking encyclopedia. Who cares if you actually embody your knowledge? It's enough to be puffed up with it. It's enough to parrot everything. YouTube videos, educational or otherwise, are no different. YouTube and other platforms like Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram are designed not only to appeal to the masses, but also to force every minority and individual to abandon their individuality in favor of joining the masses. That's what the most powerful algorithms on the planet are meant to do, to make you join the beehive without even noticing, to make you believe that what you are being force-fed is your own opinions, identity, and desires. Here is what I find horrifying. The vast majority of online channels deliver knowledge and produce content designed for mass consumption. The person who consumes online content rarely pauses to consider that they are consuming something made for mass consumption, and that through this consumption they are by definition part of the masses, contributing to the beehive. Remember what I said earlier about the mall? That was a metaphor. We are constantly transforming society without realizing the beehives we are creating. Every time you hear a YouTuber say, "Don't forget to subscribe," what they should be saying is, "Don't forget to mindlessly contribute to the beehive." In my previous video a year ago, I told my subscribers if this channel was merely so-so for them, they should consider unsubscribing so they could focus on things that truly matter to them. And many did, which made me happy. Do I like having subscribers? Of course I do. But this should not come at the cost of creating a mindless beehive. Anyone who wishes to stay is more than welcome to, and they have my gratitude. But if someone isn't getting much from this channel, they should explore their options elsewhere. I understand what I risk by saying this. I know that without subscribers, this channel will not survive. But don't you see, if the goal really is freedom from a mass-like mentality, then this is a price that must be paid. Anyone who tells you to subscribe is offering a chain to shackle yourself with. It's up to you whether you accept it or not. But I cannot claim that the chain I offer is better just because it's shinier than the ones others offer. Every cell, that is every channel, in this beehive must operate within the incentives of consumerist mass production if it wishes to survive. And each time I subscribe to a channel, I am the one giving life to what perhaps deserves to be dead and buried. There is nothing inherently wrong with a platform like YouTube. In fact, it has great potential. The problem lies in how we have sold ourselves to its algorithm and consumerist incentives. The real issue is that the internet is turning us more and more into masses. When thinking of masses, it would be inaccurate to define them in terms of a simple majority or minority. It's not about literal numbers. Rather, the mass is a psychological reality. Society is always a dynamic unity of two component factors, minorities and masses. Since the masses are an abstract entity, there is no objective minority or majority to speak of. There is not even an objective right or wrong. Anyone can feel as though they belong to the right side or believe they represent the majority. This is why moral righteousness and the conviction of being on the right side of history have become the dominant expressions of our time. The mass mentality is like a virus that does not differentiate between whom it infects. It is egalitarian, infecting left-wing and right-wing politics equally. How the right has lost its mind and sold itself to the devil of the masses needs no explanation. Not even its rhetoric attempts to hide the fact. But what about the progressive left? Here, things become more dangerous because the left's rhetoric obscures the reality. The minority is the opposite of the mass. Being in the minority, existentially speaking, is the path of the individual. However, because we so easily fall for the superficiality of words, the left has learned to exploit this to its advantage. Isn't it a bit paradoxical that diversity has become such a buzzword that so many eagerly identify as belonging to some minority? If it's truly about being the minority, then how can half of society belong to it? The minorities of today are abstract groups that have come together to form new masses. A true minority does not define itself. It simply is, nor does it gather to form multitudes. Minority once meant that each individual separated themselves from the multitude, but this is no longer the case. Restoring minority to its original sense is what we should aim for. Since, as I explained earlier, belonging to the masses has nothing to do with a simple minority-majority dichotomy, what I'm describing in this video says nothing about things like demonstrations or coming together for a good cause. As I said, it's more about psychology. The mass is a psychological fact. It should not be confused with literal mass formations. The two may overlap, but they are not identical. A person can belong to a mass without ever appearing in a mass formation. If I am truly the minority, I do not seek anyone's pity, nor will I huddle with others who self-identify as a minority. Like Nietzsche's Zarathustra, I should stand alone and face the multitude. One of the greatest political tricks of our time is that the masses have branded themselves as minorities to go unnoticed. The left does not offer a real alternative to the fascism of the right. It merely rebrands the masses and creates its own version of the beehive. The mass crushes beneath it everything that is different, everything that is excellent, individual, qualified, and select. Anybody who is not like everybody, who does not think like everybody, runs the risk of being eliminated. Here is what happens when I have a mass-like mentality. If everyone around me adopts the fascist ideology, I go along with it. And if everyone happens to want to belong to a minority, I simply self-identify as one. This is why mass is a psychological fact. It has nothing to do with numbers. Being part of a minority has lost its original meaning of standing against the multitude. In mass mode thinking, minorities unite to become the multitude. The masses have nothing to do with social class. It is not the case that the uneducated or the working classes are more likely to form masses. The highly educated upper class is just as prone to adopting mass identity as the working class. Belonging to the lower or upper class does not automatically determine whether one belongs to the mass or not. Strictly speaking, within both these social classes there are to be found mass and genuine minority. What we see across the entire political spectrum is hyperdemocracy. The masses create beehives which they directly shape and sustain, all while serving their queens. And ironically, it's all done in the name of individuality and freedom. That is the greatest con modern politics has pulled off. While there is a strong case to be made for democracy, hyperdemocracy represents a case of too much of a good thing. Dear individual listener, thanks for listening. If you're not a subscriber, for the love of God, don't subscribe to this channel mindlessly. You have better things to do and other beehives to maintain. While I do appreciate subscribers and while I would welcome any new subscriber to the channel, think twice before hitting that subscribe button. You know what would make me happier than you liking this video and subscribing? Cutting the umbilical cord and freeing yourself from this matrix. So, cut the umbilical cord and free yourself from this matrix. Become free from social media. Become free from the multitude. Abandon Facebook, X, TikTok, and all other poisons altogether.